Vinny the Wonderful to run the mission with your host, Vinny the Wonderful.
Back at talking about painters, and this is going to be the first time I speak, of course, about a painter instead of just a particular painting. And I want to talk about Hieronymus Bosch. Now, I don't speak Dutch. I looked around and I saw that Hieronymus Bosch is like the proper pronunciation of the name. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I think that is how it's supposed to be said. Hieronymus, which is a type of version of the name Jerome. And you see that in every episode I talk about a name in a different language. I try to make the minimal effort of looking it up to see how the name is pronounced, because I want to be respectful of people's languages and cultures. And so it is fairly easy to Google, to do an internet research and find out. So today I'm going to talk about the painter in general. And when we think of Northern European painters, sometimes it's quite difficult to find a lot of information about them, especially compared to the Italians of the Renaissance fame. They have quite the biographical data on them, but for Northern European, for German, sometimes for Netherlands, it's difficult. And the one thing that you will find out about Hieronymus Bosch if you read a book about him is that everything known about, well, not everything, but like most things known about his work are quite speculative. It's not something that we know for sure. And that is something that I want to approach today. Now, what can we say for sure about the painter? We know for sure that his work is quite religious and Christian. There are paintings about biblical subjects and saints. However, it is a type of religiosity that is beginning to, maybe not beginning at that point in time, but it's merging with popular beliefs. I feel like that has always been the case. I feel like medieval art, Christian medieval, has a lot of popular belief, but his work is very obviously influenced by things that aren't in the Bible or aren't exactly church related. But it is obviously demonstrably religious. And the other thing that we know for sure is that his work is a little bit, let's say, out of the box. It's crazy, perhaps. It's unusual. It's fanciful. That we have resources that show that people thought that about his work even back then. So nowadays there is a lot of reading on how surreal it is, and there is quite the fanciful thoughts on mystery and mysticalness. So here's a quote from the book History of Classic Painting, published under the supervision of Germain Bazin. Each of Bosch's pictures is a vast symbolic encyclopedia in which are assembled ancient beliefs in hidden mysteries, in astrology and magic. And so it's very, very common to have authors giving a very mystical reading of the work of Hieronymus Bosch. Now, why did I decide to talk about this artist specifically today? Is because his representations of monsters and animals are extremely cool. That is why I'm so interested in his work. But I do want to talk about the meaning that scholars have tried to associate with his work. Me personally, I'm interested when he paints, say, a griffin or a unicorn or just a demon that he made up. People try to figure out what does it mean? And there are several explanations for the same creature, but ultimately, perhaps this is more of a warning if you want to get into his work, to understand that sometimes you get a source and it will say with some certainty, with some authority, that his work means X, and I want you to keep in mind that all of that is speculative. What we do know about his work is by comparing other mediums and things of the time that were popular. So books that were around his time, objects and popular sayings, all of that can give a understanding as to why he chose to use some of the elements that are in his pictures, but we don't have a definite answer. And so I want to talk about the owl. An owl is an animal that is frequent in his work. It's almost like a signature move. And upon giving it a very light research, I found out that the owl in one of his paintings, painting called Saint Jerome in Prayer, it is said that the owl represents heresy, according to one author. In another work, a different author seems to think that the owl represents evil or the folly of man. In the painting The Ship of Fools, the owl represents the medieval owl, which differs. This is something that I probably should have mentioned, that one very accepted thing is that we nowadays think of the Greek association with Athena, that the owl is a symbol of wisdom, but in medieval times it was everything but wisdom. So in The Ship of Fools, the owl is seen as a symbol of menace and caution. The owl in some paintings is representative of the human blindness somehow, and in the painting The Conjurer, which is a great storytelling painting, it has like a lot of things going on. It's a very interesting painting. And the conjurer, as it were, the magician, he has a little owl inside a basket around his waist. And some authors suggested that the owl represents the corruption and satanic powers, and others say that is the devil's cleverness. Now, you might be thinking, well, overall, all of those descriptions of what the owl represent, it's within the same vein: foolishness, sin, the devil, caution. It's an overall demonic and negative thing, right? Except that we have an owl in the first part, in the left panel of the triptych of the Garden of Earthly Delights. By the way, if you don't know, a triptych is when you make 3 different paintings and they all form one composition painting. So you have one painting on the left, one middle painting, and one painting on the right. And it's read sometimes left to right, but sometimes it's a composition. For instance, you could have a portrait in the middle and 2 portraits on each side. Like you could have a prince, the queen on one side, the king on the other. In this case, it's this amazing composition that anyone could go on and on about. But just do check it out. It's a composition. It has a panel that closes. There's another painting. I think it's the 3rd day of creation by God. Shout out to God. And inside, there's 3 panels. The panel on the left is supposed to be the Garden of Eden, right after the creation of Adam and Eve. So there is no evil upon mankind just yet. There is in that painting a couple of little creepy critters about, but everything seems to be pretty nature, mellow, non-evil like. And yet, in the middle of that panel, in the fountain in the middle of the lake, there is a hole and an owl in it. And so some authors suggest that that owl, unlike the other owls, isn't evil. Okay, so the next piece of evidence is just straight up a drawing of an owl in a nest. A drawing that if you go to like main page Wikipedia and look at it, you find a portrait of Hieronymus Bosch, and secondly, just a drawing that he made of an owl. Now, a lot of authors will go on and on of medieval alchemy, supernatural meanings of his work. And I suppose if I had museum money in my pocket, I could never say, my professional opinion is that Hieronymus Bosch, he just liked owls. It's an animal he likes to draw. I don't think it has any special meaning when he adds them. It's like picking a different color for one artist or another. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe there is, under certain circumstances, a meaning. Maybe there is something that was more common in Renaissance and late medieval Netherlands that would make it clearer, but we don't know for sure. And boy, everybody seems to love to speculate what the hell the owl means. So I suppose that is all, just to say that all we know is that we don't know much about Hieronymus Bosch. I didn't even got to talk and geek out about the monsters that he creates. I'm gonna talk about a handful of mysterious monsters that he has painted that we do know some reliable information about. I'm going to geek out about those secrets in the next episode of Vinny the Wonderful Transmission. Thank you so much for all of you who have been enjoying and listening to this, and I really appreciate it. Please visit vinnythewonderful.blogspot.com, and I see you, boys and girls, next time.